Chapter 387 Ignite, Spiritual Sea. However, the fourth elder was using a domain attack. After sensing that it wasn't having any effect, he quickly made adjustments. A few netherworld swords still came towards the two of them. Wang Qiu suddenly pushed the palms that were facing each other out. A sonorous dragon roar reverberated out, and a ball of golden light blew apart within the patch of green lights. A wild and immense strength was unleashed among the green lights, as if it were an explosive bomb that had just gone off. Boom, boom, boom. A tremendous explosion tore through the air, and streaks of sword light were deflected away and crushed. Huo Yuao and Wang Qiu's aura didn't seem to be weaker than the titled dueler opposite them, even though they were staggering backward. Inside the lightning net, Nan Shuishui and Nan Qiupayu had already been pulled to the third elder's side. He used two chains to trap them, soul tools that could restrain soul power. Those who were soul emperors and below couldn't possibly use their abilities under the restraint of such soul tools. To the third elder, Nan Shuishui was under the influence of the soul eradicating powder, while Nan Qiupayu was only soul king. He just needed these two soul tools to restrain them. Nan Shuishui didn't resist. She was very focused on the fight that was going on, in awe. The third and fourth elders might not know who Huo Yuao and Wang Qiu were. However, how could Nan Shuishui not know who the two of them were? One of them was the team leader of Shrek, while the other was the linchpin of the Tang sect. Since they could compete in the Continental Youth Soul Master Tournament, that meant that they weren't 20 years old yet. They were around the same age as her daughter, but they had already demonstrated how brilliant they were. Nan Shuishui had always thought that her daughter was already very outstanding. However, Nan Qiupayu was simply too inferior to Huo Yuao and Wang Qiu. The two of them were actually able to survive several confrontations against a titled dueler, and they didn't seem to be on the back foot either. If word of this spread, how proud would they feel? Of course, the two of them wouldn't become too excited because of this. The fourth elder was simply putting too much pressure on them. He was a 9-ringed titled dueler. Huo Yuao had always known that titled dueler were extremely strong. In Shrek Academy, he knew many titled dueler and transcendent dueler. However, it was two different things to know a titled dueler and to fight a titled dueler. He felt like the fourth elder's netherworld sword could tear them apart at any time. Huo Yuao and Wang Qiu's fused soul power was quickly declining after they blocked this blow of his. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to resist his attacks for long. Huo Yuao called to Wang Qiu through his spiritual power. What? Wang Qiu seemed to reply him less coldly. I have an idea to get their attention. When I draw their attention later, leave. It's impossible to chide out from here, given our abilities. We only have one opportunity, and I'll help you create it. At most, they'll capture me. When you return to the academy, just think of a way to rescue me. Huo Yuao's voice was very calm, and was filled with confidence. Wang Qiu was silent, and didn't utter a sound. Qiu, did you hear me? Huo Yuao quickly probed. There wasn't much time left. Wang Qiu sighed before she replied. All right. They were already suffering against one titled dueler, and there was still another one for them to face. Huo Yuao took in a deep breath, then dragged Wang Qiu with both his hands to his side. She spun around, and they changed positions. She was now behind Huo Yuao. However, she didn't just place her hands around his waist like he did to her earlier. When she came behind him, she wrapped her arms around his waist. She stuck close to his body and hugged him without any gaps. Wang Qiu's body was warm and cushiony. She wrapped her arms around his waist strongly, but didn't make him feel restrained. He felt indescribably relieved. Wang Qiu's surging soul power poured into his body, while she seemed to forget that she was on a battlefield right now. She twisted her head to one side and gently rested it on the back of Huo Yuao's shoulder, staying close to him. A delicate fragrance spread, and Huo Yuao was still distracted by Wang Qiu, even though he was fighting a life and death battle. Qiu. Huo Yuao silently called in his heart. I'm sorry. If I didn't meet Donga, perhaps. However, I've given my life to Donga. Just let me use this last moment to completely sever this yearning in your heart. You must live well in the future, and find someone who dotes on and loves you. Forget me. An unequivocal look flashed across Huo Yuao's eyes. At this moment, his arms drooped beside his body, and his head didn't move. His eyes started to fill with silver light, and a look of remembrance slowly spread across them. Donga. Huo Yuao smiled, and his spiritual intent seemed to rise to another level. Waves started to rage in his spiritual sea. Teacher Electrolux, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I can't pass down your legacy anymore. Ice Empress, Brother Skydream, Snow Lady, I'm sorry. I can't continue to charge towards the path of gods with all of you in the future. When I leave, I'll pass all of you to Qiu. Qiu isn't less gifted than me. She has the same power of destiny in her body, and she even has the pure bloodline of a dragon god. In the future, it'll be easier for her to reach the level of a god. I'll pass your strengths to her at the last moment. Follow her, and continue to charge towards it. Thank you for all these years. It's because of all of you that I was able to turn from an ordinary boy into what I am today. Huo Yuao's eyes were filled with guilt. However, he was extremely determined. The Ice Empress turned frantic in his spiritual sea. She tried to muster her origin power to stop him. The Skydream Iceworm was also frantic, and he furiously shouted, stupid. His golden tears also flowed. The little Snow Lady, who was originally on Huo Yuao's back, was forced back into Huo Yuao's body with a strong power and entered his spiritual sea too. The Snow Empress, who looked like a teenager right now, looked slightly sorrowful, and now seemed to be a little more quick-witted too. However, they couldn't do anything right now. Huo Yuao dominated his own spiritual sea. The Skydream Iceworm was even the one who had personally conferred this authority onto him. Right now, that became their biggest restriction. At this moment, they realized what Huo Yuao was trying to do. However, they couldn't do anything to stop him. Huo Yuao's three eyes were extremely bright. Far into the east, the sky gradually turned marble white. However, it couldn't compare to the bright light that shone from his eyes. Streaks of sword light slashed towards Huo Yuao. However, they were only able to brush past his body, no matter how strong and concentrated they were. There seemed to be an unprecedentedly strong force in his body that was protecting him and preventing any interruption. A dim projection appeared behind Huo Yuao before it turned illusory. This projection was himself. It was a dim golden projection of Huo Yuao. Right now, he seemed very peaceful and quiet. He shut his eyes and sat cross-legged. As he stretched his hands in front of him, his index fingers and thumbs formed a heart shape. A strange golden fog started to rise from this projection. No, it wasn't a fog. It was a flame instead. It was a flame that was burning. Everything around him turned bright, as if dawn had arrived in advance. Every soul engineer from the Evil Eye Pirate Soul Engineer Legion was moved without any reason. They were even unable to hold their soul tools anymore, and lowered them. They were all in a daze as they looked at the projection of the burning man. Huo Yuao seemed very huge and tall right now. There was a proud look in his eyes, as if he were watching all life. His smile was very gentle, but it also seemed to be a scornful smile, directed at his enemies. He was burning. He had ignited his spiritual sea. Was he crazy? Could he actually do something like this? Whether it was the third elder, the fourth elder, or Wu, who had just recovered from the blow she had sustained from Huo Yuao's spiritual shock, they were all astonished as they looked at Huo Yuao. Soul masters might choose to ignite their own soul power in the face of a crisis to generate extremely strong offensive strength. However, it was very difficult to stop such an ignition after it had started. Even if it was stopped, the soul master's cultivation would still be greatly affected, and he might sustain a permanent injury. If it couldn't be stopped, his soul power would burn until there was nothing left, and he would die. As a result, soul masters rarely chose to ignite their soul power, even in the face of a crisis. As for igniting one's spiritual power and spiritual sea, however, it was something that was unknown and unheard of. Spiritual power and spirits were magical existences no matter whether it was in the world of soul masters or soul engineers. No one could clearly explain what they were. Even for a spiritual type soul master, his understanding of spiritual power was very limited if his cultivation wasn't high enough. While the ignition of one's soul power couldn't usually be controlled, a person's spirit would still remain even if he was dead. However, igniting one's spiritual power was definitely uncontrollable, and both the body and spirit of a person would be completely destroyed. Is this guy crazy? Did we even say we were going to kill him? Wu didn't know that Huo Yuao had made such an unhesitant and determined decision mainly for two reasons. First, he felt that he owed Wang Qiu too much. She was here to rescue him in this time of crisis, and he felt that he was obligated to ensure that she was safe. In order to send Wang Qiu away safely, he needed sufficient strength. Secondly, he felt that Wu was too threatening. Huo Yuao was reminded of how Feng Ling was turned into a madam, and he was afraid to end up like him. He would rather his body and spirit be destroyed than to become a second Feng Ling. That was also the more important reason why he was willing to die. He stepped out with his left leg, and his bright eyes turned gentler. A golden projection silently appeared behind him. Compared to Wang Qiu, this projection seemed a little more slender, and had straight hair. Wasn't this Wang Donga? She quietly flew forward and adopted a hugging posture before she sat close and fused with Huo Yuao's body. During this process, she also flew past Wang Qiu's body. Wang Qiu Yue shuddered, and the look of sadness flashed across her beautiful eyes. Even at this life and death moment, he still only has her in his heart. This projection of Wang Dongge fused with Hua Yuao, and his gaze turned even gentler. At this moment, to him, his enemies didn't seem to exist anymore. There was only a look of remembrance in his eyes. Remembrance was a magical thing. Hua Yuao unleashed his fist of remembrance, which contained a surging feeling of remembrance. A fist with an indescribable color, but which yet seemed to shine with a special glow, was formed. Hua Yuao didn't seem to have a target, and he just unleashed his fist into the air. However, all three of the evil soul masters, which comprised 2 titled Duoluo and 1 soul Duoluo, felt as if Hua Yuao's fist was unleashed towards them. An indescribable emotion instantly spread in their hearts. The fourth elder was the first to bear the brunt of Hua Yuao's attack. As he was standing directly opposite Hua Yuao, he straightened his netherworld sword, and his 7th soul ring shone. His body instantly turned into a streak of black light, and he fused with his sword. Following this, another tragic scream sounded. Among the 9 netherworld souls in the 4th elder's netherworld sword, the 2nd soul was crushed, and the earlier purplish sword projection surfaced again. Space shook like the strings of a violin, and the 4th elder's martial soul true body, which was this purplish netherworld sword, surged up. However, it was forced back into the original form of the 4th elder's sword and disappeared. In addition, the soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion in the air who had already retreated quite some distance also seemed to be infected by something. They started to tear up, and they couldn't control their emotions. They even couldn't control themselves in the air, and their soul tools started to fall from their hands. At this point, metal was raining down inside the city. At this moment, all of these soul engineers were all remembering their loved ones, and they lost their fighting spirit. This was the highest level of profundity of the Fist of Remembrance. There wasn't any outright force, but it influenced, controlled, and even destroyed one's emotions. The stronger one's spiritual power was, the greater the influence on their emotions. This was especially applicable for those who shared a similar type of remembrance with Hua Yuao. The 3rd elder had already raised his right arm, and was prepared to use a strong soul tool to destroy Hua Yuao. However, it stopped in the air. He turned his gaze towards Nan Shushui, who was right beside him. Remembrance was a magical thing. Right now, the person he yearned for the most was beside him. A blissful smile unwittingly appeared on his face. At this moment, he had already completely forgotten what he was doing here, and that he was supposed to attack Hua Yuao. Wu was dealt a larger blow than the 3rd elder. She and Wu Yun were twin sisters, and they suffered from similar circumstances. When Wu Yun's emotions changed, she would experience similar emotional changes, too. After she saw what Hua Yuao presented to her through his imitation, her emotions were fluctuating even worse than her elder sister. Right now, all types of complex emotions erupted in her head. Wu Yun had been able to instinctively counterattack and defend herself. However, Wu was completely motionless in the air, and in a daze as she stared at Hua Yuao, all sorts of emotions were surging and changing continuously in her eyes. Compared to her, the 4th elder was under less influence. However, he was directly in front of Hua Yuao's fist of remembrance. This fist was a perfect combination of spiritual and soul power, and it was infused with the feeling of remembrance. When it was unleashed, it was completely imprinted onto the 4th elder's martial soul true body. The sword intent of his purple sword was suppressed, and his sword was flung back amidst a piercing buzzing sound. He flew back several hundred meters before he managed to stabilize himself. Hua Yuao didn't stop. When he unleashed his fist of remembrance, he had already forgotten everything about the outside world. The identical projection above him started to burn more brightly. It was the origin power in his spiritual sea that was burning. Otherwise, how could he possibly unleash such strong emotions and infect the 2 titled Duoluo till they weren't able to hold their ground anymore? Hua Yuao exerted force with his left foot, and he was lifted higher again. He lifted his right hand and pointed his index and middle fingers upward. A lustrous, bright glow instantly shot into the sky. A huge beam of sword light around 100 meters long and several dozen meters wide shot into the sky. This bright sword light seemed to pierce the sky. Wherever it passed, space distorted and would gently shake. Hua Yuao's expression also started to change. The gentle look in his eyes turned into pain, and he pursed his lips tightly. His eyes had already turned wet, and his emotions seemed to completely enter another world. Remembrance. It started from thinking before it escalated to missing. Wang Dongge's face flashed in Hua Yuao's eyes. He suddenly felt that he was very blissful. Even if he had to die, he was able to die during his remembrance of Wang Dongge. He was satisfied. This was probably the best result, considering the situation he was in. The majestic sword light descended from the sky. One swordplay could only reach the peak if he handled his relationships well. This was Hua Yuao's sword of longing, a sword which would never be forgotten. There was a target for this sword. Wu. If not for the fact that Wu had controlled Feng Ling, Hua Yuao's almost perfect plan wouldn't have experienced such a huge problem. More importantly, Wu Yu's emotions were completely controlled by his fist of remembrance right now. This was his best breakthrough point. She was affected worse than the rest because she was a spiritual type soul master. Her spirit of vengeance relied on boundless hatred. However, she was forced to experience the feeling of remembrance by Hua Yuao at this moment. How could she avoid his sword of longing now, after being affected by his fist of remembrance earlier? Her spirit of vengeance sensed a huge crisis, and unleashed itself from her body to protect her. Wu seemed to be getting a slow grip on her emotions, but it was all too late. Hua Yuao's fusion with Wang Qi and his ignition of his spiritual sea had raised his strength to a standard above Wu. The 3 ultimate Haodong skills had finally revealed the terrifying strength that they were meant to possess. Why didn't Hua Yuao use the abilities that the Snow Empress, the Ice Empress, and the Sky Dream Ice Worm had conferred on him? It was because he had to continue to be connected to them if he used their abilities. If that happened, they wouldn't be able to separate from him after his death and fuse with Wang Qi. This was why Hua Yuao could only use the 3 skills that he had invented, the 3 ultimate Haodong skills. Hua Yuao's sword of longing immediately tore her avenging spirit to pieces. Wherever this sword light passed, spots of bright light were left behind in the air. It was as if tears of remembrance had been scattered in the air. This shiny sword light flashed past Wu Yu's body before disappearing, and her body stiffened in the air. She drifted several meters back before stopping. The bloodshot look in her eyes faded away, and her gaze started to become similar to Hua Yuao's. She was ultimately not as strong as her sister. Against Hua Yuao's complete version of the 3 ultimate Haodong skills, she didn't manage to survive until his last skill. She was already sucked into the whirlpool of remembrance by the sword of longing. In the next instant, her body disintegrated and was crushed before she turned into a pile of dust. She was reunited with her elder sister in another world. That majestic sword seemed to have slashed the sky apart. At this instant, Ma Xiaotao looked at the sky in the direction of Sunrise City, as if she had a premonition. That's not good. There's a fight in Sunrise City. It could be a fight involving titled Duoluo, considering how strong the spiritual undulations are. Quick, let's return. Ma Xiaotao was frantic. After giving out her order, she immediately leapt up, and her wings fluttered forcefully as she quickly proceeded back towards Sunrise City. Earlier, she kept on having bouts of uneasiness, as if she felt that something was going to happen. However, she kept on telling herself that it was probably because Hua Yuao was about to be caught. She had also been thinking of a plan of action if Hua Yuao was caught. Without the 3rd and 4th elders, it was possible for Hua Yuao and the others to kill the Zhong brothers if they coordinated well. It was just that the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion was nearby, and their leader, who was a Class 9 Soul Engineer, was very difficult to deal with. However, Ma Xiaotao suddenly felt that something wasn't right when the sword of longing swept across the sky. The reason why she was feeling uneasy wasn't because it originated from a distance, but because it came from behind her. Don't tell me that little brother didn't leave Sunrise City, and he's still inside. How could Ma Xiaotao control her emotions with this thought lingering in her head? She quickly rushed away back to Sunrise City. Wu was dead. She died just like that. She died without unleashing any of the fighting strength that she should possess. However, her death also jolted the 3rd elder awake. The 4th elder was also flying back from afar. His 8th and 9th soul rings could be seen flashing. Hua Yuao had gone into closed-door cultivation for several months, and fused all of his abilities. He had perfectly combined his spiritual and soul power through the connection of his emotions to form his 3 great skills, which were the strongest expression of his emotions. No matter how strong his opponents were, they would be infected by him if they weren't able to resist the invasion of his spiritual power. These 3 great skills were mainly supported by Hua Yuao's spiritual power because his spiritual cultivation had surpassed the rank of his soul power. When he completed his soul power fusion with Wang Qi and unleashed his 3 great skills, he had already established himself in the league of the strongest individuals in this world. After unleashing his sword, Hua Yuao was already crying. He retracted his palm to his waist before flipping it over. He formed the shape of a heart in the air, fire, and all the lights were retracted at this instant. There was an additional heart at the center of his palm. It was a golden heart. Even the most dazzling gem in this world couldn't compare to the glow from this golden heart. This golden heart represented a sincere heart. It was filled with eternal love and remembrance. Huo Yue shut his eyes. At this moment, there was only one figure in his mind. There weren't any other people or things that could affect his state of mind. He was already deeply immersed in his thoughts of Wang Donga. Donga, Donga, Donga. He was gently calling in his heart. He seemed to see Wang Donga and how she had sacrificed her life for him without any hesitation. Donga, Donga. As he called, that shining, golden heart slowly moved forward as he pushed his palm forward. In the sky, the clouds experienced changes, and thunder rumbled. After pitch darkness filled the sky, it suddenly lit up. The lights came from an unknown origin, but they formed a heart shape. The signals from all the aerial surveillance soul tools that the evil eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion had released again were all jumbled up. In the next moment, their internal formation arrays blew apart, and they were all destroyed. That huge and seemingly boundless heart resonated with the golden heart on Huo Yue's palm. Behind the heart in the sky, there seemed to be a beautiful face watching everything that was happening on the ground with a gentle gaze. Donga, I'll forever miss and bless you. Even if I go to another world, as long as there's still a trace of my spirit left, I'll always love you. Donga. As Huo Yue pushed his palm out, and the two hearts resonated with each other, it seemed as if countless flowing lights shone behind Huo Yue's back. There were only memories of him and Wang Donga within those flowing lights. Huo Yue's Haodong palm, a palm which would last eternally. This was the last strike of Huo Yue's three great skills. The chi of heaven and earth was overwhelming, and the feeling of remembrance was pure. The heart on Huo Yue's palm enlarged severalfold, and completely engulfed him and Wang Qi. The two hearts between heaven and earth got closer and closer, and then merged together. At this moment, the third and fourth elders had to retreat rapidly, even with their cultivations. They could clearly sense that they would be critically hurt if they were touched by this heart-shaped light. The hearts combined in the sky, and formed a heart shape that was even brighter than the sun. It was perfectly flawless. The heart-shaped light suddenly retracted, and the huge heart that was originally a few hundred meters in diameter suddenly shrank to a diameter of only around 50 meters. In the next instant, this huge heart suddenly raised up a dazzling plume that shot into the distance. In the blink of an eye, both Huo Yue and Wang Qi vanished without a trace. They weren't the only ones who disappeared. Nan Shuishui and Nan Qikai, who were both restrained by the third elder's lightning god's binding earlier, had also disappeared. It was like the third elder's lightning god's binding was a joke in front of the Haodong palm. The third and fourth elders were both in a daze. Everything that had happened earlier was like a dream to them. It just wasn't believable anymore. Huo Yue and Wang Qi were a soul king and soul sage. Among ordinary people, and even soul masters, they possessed rather extraordinary fighting strength. However, how many opponents did the two of them face? They had fought more than 100 elite soul engineers, a class 9 soul engineer, a titled duo, and a soul duo who was a strong, spiritual type evil soul master. What was the eventual result? The soul duo was killed. The elite soul engineers fell from the sky and were in critical condition, and the two titled duo could only watch helplessly as they escaped. They couldn't even stop them. No one would believe this. All of this was too weird and shocking. The fourth elder flew over in front of the third elder and said with lingering fear, "What ability did he just reveal? It was frightening. I have a feeling that I would have been killed if he used all three moves on me earlier." The third elder patted the fourth elder's shoulder and said, "Forget it. He's doomed no matter what abilities he has since he's ignited his spiritual sea. Let's go." 2. We don't know how the Holy Lady and the others are. Yes, Huo Yue was doomed. Huo Yue's gaze was filled with gentleness. Nan Qikai, Nan Shuishui and Wang Qi could clearly see Huo Yue's face as they were protected by the heart-shaped light, but they couldn't sense any resistance from the outside world. Above Huo Yue, that identical figure was still burning. However, it looked a little illusory now compared to before. The three ladies knew that Huo Yue would be completely destroyed if it finished burning. Are you doing this just to tell me that only she exists in your heart? Wang Qi was still resting on Huo Yue's back and hugging him tightly. For some reason, she had become extremely fragile now. She was like a glass vase that could be smashed into pieces any time. She no longer seemed strong, or possessed any fighting spirit. Huo Yue shook his head gently and said, "No, Qi, it's not only her in my heart. You also exist in my heart. It's just that I didn't dare to admit it." Wang Qi's body shook tremendously, and she suddenly lifted her head from Huo Yue's back. She had always been a resilient person, but her voice was trembling now. "I exist in your heart?" Huo Yue nodded gently and pulled Wang Qi in front of him. He gently embraced her and let her lean on his body. "Yes, I have both you and Donga in my heart. I just didn't dare to admit it all this while. Perhaps I'm the reason why Donga is asleep, and why you are in such pain. If I had faced myself earlier, things might have been different. Humans are emotional creatures. I could tell that you were fond of me. When I found out that you plucked another yearning heartbreaking grass for me, my heart eventually still opened up for you. I tried to hide it and not face it, and keep all my love for Donga. However, I can't deny its existence. I'm sorry, Qi, I'm a bad person. I've hurt both you and Donga. If heaven gives me one more chance, I'll only have two choices. Either I'll choose to forsake the both of you, or I'll think of a way to keep both of you by my side. I won't let any of you go. Qi, do you know? I'm actually very happy now. I really miss Donga. I really wish to return to see her. I've already planned everything out. After this mission is over, I'll return to the Clear Sky Sect to see her. However, I'm afraid that I can't go now. If you have the time, visit her on my behalf. If she wakes up, tell her that you are her elder sister, and that everything that happened was just a dream. Help her to forget me. You owl." Wang Qi cried. This was the first time Huo Yue had seen her so helpless after all this time that he had known her. However, there was a sense of bliss in her tears. Huo Yue hugged her tighter and muttered, "For some reason, I feel that both you and Donga are the same person at times. However, you showed up at different periods of my life. It would have been better if only you or Donga existed. Qi, I'm sorry." Wang Qi gently shook her head. "Don't say sorry. I should be the one to apologize. I was the one who forced myself into your life. Without me, all of this might not have happened. In fact, I already knew what you thought earlier. I knew that you wanted to sacrifice yourself to save me. However, I still hated you and your heartlessness until you told me that you had me in your heart. I can feel your sincerity. My love for you has finally been repaid. Thanks so much for watching this video.